Hello gorgeous peeps, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and finally, after what feels like ruddy months since the official Galaxy Unpacked launch, I've actually got my mitts on the regular sized Samsung Galaxy S22. Now the Galaxy S22 is a mite smaller than its predecessor, last year's S21, at just 6.1 inches, making it one of the most compact phones of 2022. One disadvantage of this is the smaller battery that's stuffed inside, but on the flip side of this, you've also got hopefully stronger performance as well as fresh camera hardware, sexier display tech, and some other upgrades. And it should be a hell of a lot easier to stash in your shorts compared with the Plus and Ultra sized models. So let's whip the Galaxy S22 on out of the box, take you on a full on tour of the hardware and the software ahead of my in-depth review. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So as usual, it's a pretty skinny box from Samsung. What do you actually get in there besides the Galaxy S22? Well, inside of this teeny box, you get an even teenier box. And this has stashed inside of it a Porky-Pin device, usual quick start guide shenanigans, and a Type-C to Type-C USB cable, and that is your whack. As usual, no adapter, no protective cover, none of that. So that's the box done in record time. Should have talked a bit slower maybe, but now let's move on to the actual Galaxy S22. Okay, so the Samsung Galaxy S22 regular edition all set up and ready for action. And I gotta say, it's been that long since my hands-on review of this bad boy, I forgot just how hand-friendly it really is. Samsung has gone for flatter edges for this year's S22 series versus last year's S21, which seems to be on trend for 2022. A lot of other manufacturers like Xiaomi, for instance, have copied this formula. I'm hoping it's not an iPhone thing, otherwise we're going to see big fat mustache notches on all of our phones soon. But despite those flatter edges, still very comfortable to clutch and one-handed use, nice and simple. Of course, it's still not super easy to reach up to the very top end of that 6.1 inch display. At least not if you've got stubby, wee fingers and thumbs like myself. But thankfully, Samsung's usual one-handed mode is in effect, helping out wherever needed. Pretty skinny bezels there surrounding the display, which is always good to see. It is a completely flat display as well, no curvature around the edges to speak of. And you've actually got the latest Gorilla Glass Victus plating the front end of the Galaxy S22, and that's also what the arse end is constructed of. So gone is that glastic finish of yesteryear. It feels a lot more premium as a result, and hopefully means the Galaxy S22 will survive an incongruous tumble onto a hard floor as well, because Gorilla Glass Victus tends to be more shatter resistant compared with earlier versions. That said, it does also scratch up more easily than the likes of Gorilla Glass 6, however, so you might want to slap a case on it and a screen protector as well if you want to keep it in good nick. And then sandwiched between those two plates of Gorilla Glass here in the middle, you've got Samsung's fresh new Armor aluminium edging. It's supposed to be tougher than ever, though I've got to admit I did accidentally drop one of the Galaxy S22 samples in my hands-on session back in the day, and I did leave a bit of a chip in one of the corners. Just don't tell Samsung that was me. Shh. And you've got a small selection of colours to choose from as well, including your standard Phantom White and Phantom Black. This here is the Moody Green model, which I actually really like. That's probably my favourite of the bunch. Or you can also grab the Samsung S22 with a bright pink gold finish if you want something with a bit more flair. And yes, the phone is IP68 water and dust resistant, so no worries if you want to take it into a bubbly bath, into the shower, rock it in the swimming pool, the jacuzzi, whatever you fancy. Got that added bit of peace of mind, which is typical for a premium flagship around this price point. So let's have a gander at the software, and it's pretty much exactly what you'd predict here on the Galaxy S22. You've got the latest, freshest Android 12 with Samsung's One UI version 4.1 slapped on top. So all those fantastic standard Android 12 features are present and correct, including the great privacy features which alert you whenever your smartphone's camera or mics are being used by any apps. And if you are feeling particularly paranoid, you can just flip the switch and completely kill all access to the camera and the mic for all apps. Plenty of ways to customize your Galaxy S22 as well, including changing up the color palette of the UI based on the wallpaper you've got installed. And then as usual, you've got all those One UI bonus bits. So for instance, the fresh new device care feature, which shows you exactly how your smartphone is toddling along. Just helps you to optimize the performance as well, clearing up the clutter, working out if there's any issues lurking in the background. All of that and a cheery smiley face to brighten up your day. There is also an always on display feature, though this is tap to show by default, which isn't always on, obviously, so let's just schedule that instead. You can also create your own AR emoji thing to appear on your always on display, although for me this makes me look like some sort of Project U-Tree special. And there we have the final result. But anyhow, if you would like to know more about One UI 4, all the fresh new features that Samsung has chucked in there, etc., well, definitely go check out my dedicated video on all of that stuff. As usual with Samsung blows, the Galaxy S22 comes stuffed with a bunch of Samsung extra bonus bits, most of which are simple duplicates of Google's own services. So you've got Bixby, yet another assistant stuffed on there. You've got the likes of Samsung Health, you've got Smart Things, which is like Google Home, and a few other cheeky bits chucked on here as well, including the likes of TikTok and Spotify. But thankfully, any shit that you don't want can be quickly and easily uninstalled. Hip hip huzzah. And of course, Sammy always takes security very seriously indeed. The Galaxy S22 once again comes packed with great security features from the likes of the Knox security suite. You've got that ultrasonic in-display fingerprint sensor as well, which so far, touch wood, seems responsive and highly dependable. I haven't had to double tap my digit once since I set up this smartphone. Boom. You've also got Face Unlock on here if you want it, and Samsung has promised years of OS and security updates as well, so you're good for the foreseeable. As for the storage, well, it's a choice of 128 gigs or 256 if you want to double that up by throwing a bit more cash Samsung's way. And there's no micro SD memory card support here, so if you do take a lot of photos and shoot a lot of video in particular, I would recommend getting that higher storage model if possible. Now with Samsung, you can always count on that display tech being on point, and even though this 6.1 inch dynamic AMOLED display is a lot smaller than a lot of the competition, I still find it absolutely brilliant for just kicking back with some Disney+, Netflix, YouTube, whatever kind of entertainment you fancy. The reasonably compact design of this smartphone combined with the Full HD Plus resolution of that panel means lots of fine detail packed into your photos and every frame when you are watching a movie or a TV show. You've got sharp contrast, you've got wide viewing angles, you've got nice poppy colors as well, and you can fully play around with the color output. Reduce the vibrancy a bit if you fancy, just to make a more natural, realistic looking output. And the S22 screen can reach a eye searing maximum brightness as well. You'll just have to remember to toggle the extra brightness option in the settings though, if you want to make full use of that. Gotta say though, it's been sunny here in Blighty these past couple of days, and I haven't had any issues seeing the S22's display, so that's not strictly necessary. As for the motion smoothness, well, the refresh rate here on the S22 dips as low as 1 Hz when you want to save on power, and can scale up to 120 Hz with supported content. And that's all actually controlled by the Galaxy S22, so you don't even need to worry your pretty little head about it. And like most flagship Android smartphones out there, you do get a full stereo speaker setup here on the Galaxy S22, so let's check it out in action.
Personally, gotta say, couldn't really give any proper shits until they finally figure out a way for me to endlessly slap Mark Zuckerberg's eminently smackable face.
And even though it is rather dinky, certainly do not judge the S22 on its size, because that audio output pretty strong on the top volume, decent quality too, certainly doesn't suffer. I obviously wouldn't recommend listening to music via the smartphone speakers, but you do have full Bluetooth 5.2 output if you want to get connected to a wireless pair of headphones. Unfortunately, bugger all headphone jack like most premium smartphones out there. And if you happen to live here in Blighty with my good self, well, that means that your Galaxy S22 will come packing the 4nm Samsung Exynos 2200 chipset rather than a Qualcomm Snapdragon effort. That's backed here on the Galaxy S22 by 8 gigs of RAM, and weirdly I found that it did perform better in the benchmarking scores than its bigger brother, the Galaxy S22 Plus, despite the fact that it's rocking the same chipset and memory. Because what does that actually prove other than benchmarking is at best a ropey practice? Well, not much really. But I've got my SIM slapped in there, going to use it as my full-time smartphone for a week or so stay tuned for my in-depth review for a full analysis on the performance. And for now, as a short-term test, let's get our Genshin on. Now, as usual with Samsung's smartphones, when you are playing a game, you can drag down the notifications bar and tap here to open the Game Booster feature. Not exactly the most elegant way of getting into your gaming tools, but whatever. Serves up some simple features such as the ability to record the action. You can monitor your memory usage, the temperature of the phone, get a rough indicator of how much battery life you've got remaining, and then tap into the priority mode as well. This basically shuts down some background shiz to give your game a #1 priority, as the name kind of suggests. It also blocks all notifications. You're not pestered by anyone. Well, the good news is that even after the best part of an hour of Genshin Impact action, the Galaxy S22 was actually holding up pretty well. It wasn't getting too toasty around back, just a little bit warm is all. The actual performance stayed pretty fluid. I didn't really notice any proper dips in that frame rate at all, even when I boosted up the detail settings to the highest levels with 60 frames per second. That flat display proved perfectly responsive to all of my pokes and swipes, and the flat finish is well suited to gaming, so even though it's not the biggest panel around, I certainly didn't struggle at all. Or at least what I mean is I didn't really struggle beyond my general usual cack-handness when it comes to gaming abilities. And hopefully the gaming experience on the Galaxy S22 will only get better over time thanks to the Xclipse GPU, which supports all kinds of clever graphical shenanigans like ray tracing and variable rate shading. And hopefully there'll be bug roll complaints when it comes to the networking side of things. Of course, you've got the usual 5G and Wi-Fi 6 support here in the Samsung Galaxy S22. I'll be fully testing that out for my in-depth review. Something else I'll be fully testing out is the battery life, and this is one of the areas where I'm most concerned with the Samsung Galaxy S22, as it does have a very dinky 3700 mAh cell crammed inside of that compact chassis, one of the smallest batteries you'll find on any flagship smartphone in 2022. And of course, the thing that really killed last year's Samsung Galaxy S21 for me was the mediocre battery life. I'm really hoping that history is not going to repeat itself here. And if the battery life does prove to be woeful here on the S22, well, that's a problem that will then be further compounded by the fact that the charging support isn't exactly super nippy. Wired, it tops off at 25 watts, which is pretty mediocre compared with even quite budget smartphones, which now support, 33, 50, 60 watt charging. But at least you do get wireless charging support on here as well, which tops off at 15 watts. Of course, you will have to provide your own power adapter, your own wireless charging pad, and so on. So another piece of hardware that Samsung has upgraded for the Galaxy S22 series is that camera tech. And now you've got a new 50 megapixel primary sensor with built-in optical image stabilization. And as ever, that Samsung camera app is absolutely stuffed to the gills with various modes and features to play around with, all kinds of different stuff you can activate. So again, like the Google lens, you've got Bixby Vision, not quite as nuanced as Google's version, sadly. You do also have the AR zone, naturally. So you can turn yourself into your very own bobble-headed demonic creation. And you've also got a Pro mode if you want to manually mess around with all kinds of different features, including the shutter speed, the white balance, the focus level. But of course, one of the reasons you grab a Samsung flagship smartphone with its high price tag and all is because the auto mode is generally pretty dependable. And here's just a few quick sample shots that I snapped around the homestead in the first 24-48 hours with the Samsung Galaxy S22, just to give you an idea, a flavor of what it is capable of ahead of my in-depth review. But definitely stay tuned for that review for a full in-depth analysis. And I'll be testing out all the other various bonus modes as well, including the food mode. Yeah, get some snaps of my Greg's steak bake tomorrow before I shove it into my face. If you do require an alternative viewpoint, you've always got the 12 megapixel ultra-wide angle shooter here on the Samsung Galaxy S22. That should be quite good for your more dramatic shots, as well as trying to snap a more sizable scene. And you do also now get an actual dedicated telephoto lens as well, with a 3x optical zoom, quick and easy to swap to, just like that ultra-wide angle shooter. And if you want to, you can continue to pinch in as well beyond that 3x level, all the way up to 30 times. You want to get really close to the action. But as always, of course, the harder you push that digital zoom, the grainier the results, so you might not want to get too carried away. Samsung's flagship's usually pretty bloody good when it comes to the video smarts as well, and as you can see here, once again you can shoot up to 4K resolution footage at 30 or 60 frames per second, or even bump it all the way up to 8K resolution. Here's some 4K footage that I shot around the home, and again, stay tuned for my in-depth review for more hot video action, but not that kind of hot video action, you perv. And I was just about to tell you about the 10 megapixel selfie camera, except my neighbour's decided to suddenly start chainsawing his tree, apparently. So hopefully you can still hear this over that. And 10 megapixels may not seem like much compared with some rivals, but it's probably picking up on my distress levels quite clearly right now. Yep, certainly seems to do the bloody job. And if you'd like to shoot some video of your face doing stuff, where you can shoot up to 4K resolution footage using that front-facing selfie cam at either 30 or 60 frames per second, so it is super flexible. So there you have it, my lovelies. That in a brief nutshell is the fresh new Samsung Galaxy S22 flagship smartphone. Doesn't feel so fresh anymore because it's been, what, a month, 2 months since it launched? But here it is, finally at last. My SIM's already inside, so I'm hoping to spaff out a full in-depth review in about a week's time once I've spent some proper time with the S22 and really got to know it. In the meantime, if you've got any burning questions or bits that you would like me to cover in the review, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a bloody lovely rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!